Afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. Today we're looking at mapping in AccountsAdvanced LLP engagement files. We have half an hour available to us to talk to you about that. My name's Tom Jeffrey. I'm one of the education and media technicians here at Caseware UK, and I'm joined by Anthony Launchbury, one of our EMT consultants. So I'll be on hand to answer any questions that you have if you want to pop them in the question field in the GoToWebinar control panel. We won't be using the hand raising feature. There's quite a few of you with us today, so we won't be monitoring that. Just pop your questions into the question field. We'll get back to you as soon as we can. We've got a Q&A session at the end, but if we don't get a chance to answer your question during this session, don't worry. We will be publishing a Q&A document, and that will be added to the recording of the webinar, which we will put on the knowledge base. So I'll hand you over to Tony now, and we'll get started.
All right, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us for this webinar. As Tom mentioned there, we're going to be looking through LLP engagement files. Now, we have got an agenda to work through this morning, so I'll just showing that on the screen now, hopefully, so you can see that as we go through. Now, as Tom mentioned, we want this to be as interactive as possible, so please feel free to ask questions as you go through. Again, if it's a question we think it's quite useful to show at a given point during the presentation, we can jump in, ask a question live as we go through the webinar. So if you have got questions, feel free to send them across. Now, before we do get going, there's a quick poll that we want to run just to see exactly how many kind of LLP engagement files that you guys are working with. Okay, so I'm going to hand you back over to Tom quickly, and he's going to launch a poll. So if you just take a minute or so just to answer the question, how many LLP engagements you work with, just so we can get a good gauge of how many LLPs that you work with week in, week out. Okay, just hand you over to Tom.
Oh, yes, so we've got the poll on the screen there. As you can see, it's just a rough estimate, really. We'd find that really useful feedback if you wouldn't mind just completing the poll there. So looks like around half of you have voted so far, so we'll give you another few seconds just to pop in your response. Okay, I think that's I think we've got a good gauge there. So we'll just pop the results on the screen. So Tony, it looks like we didn't get a chance to get a vote in from everybody, unfortunately, but we got a good spread of results. It looks like the overwhelming majority of people that responded said 1 to 10.
Okay, brilliant, excellent. Thank you very much, guys, for taking the time to do that poll. Again, there's a point behind all of these, as you'll see at the end as we go through. Now, the Llp mapping versus corporate, it's a really easy place to start. There's not much difference at all. I think the biggest problem we have, or users see here, the most difficult area is trying to define exactly what the Llp mapping is. But the Llp mapping and corporate mapping lives within just one mapping database. So we've only got one mapping database. It's the same structure, it's the same idea, but there's a few principles around the LLP specific mapping that we need to have a good understanding of before we start working with LLP files. Okay, so really that's all we need to look at for the comparison. What's different? There's not a lot, and just a few extra specific LLP map codes that we need to have a good gauge of. So that's what we're going to move on to, so that looking at the LLP mapping. Now, if you guys have been onto the knowledge base website, you would see that there's an Nlp mapping document on there. And what it does is it just shows us how the mapping range populates certain notes. Now, the map sections we're going to look at here will be C, E, G, H, and R. These are the only areas within the Caseware mapping database that will affect the LLP engagements. Okay, now, you guys can all get access to this by accessing the knowledge base .caseware.co.uk website. Now, just to show you exactly what to search for when you're there, I'm just going to load up the page myself. Just remember, obviously, your login details, go through, enter those in, and all you need to do here is just type in Llp Mapping. Okay, once you've done that, don't worry about using the filters, just press enter. And within the first two results, you'll see exactly the article that you want to get access to, which will be this Llp Mapping for AccountsAdvanced. Now in here, it doesn't really show you much, it's just got a click here, and that click here is going to open up a document, and this document here, I didn't want to rely on the internet today, so I've already got it pre-prepared and downloaded, but what you'll do, once you click on that click here, it's going to take you through to this Llp Mapping, and it's going to show you the effects of these map numbers on the particular areas of the accounts, and also specific Llp content. Okay, so the first area really is looking at the profit and loss account. So it shows you here that we've got our administration costs, and we're looking at R91. So if we are looking at posting salaries for our partners within the LLP, then what we want to do is we want to make sure we post it to R91. Now, if I zoom in a little bit here, it's a bit pixelated, but hopefully you can get a good gauge. That's actually going to go through and populate the row for members' remuneration charged as an expense. Okay, so that's where it's going to sit within that statement, that profit and loss account. Now, as we move down, we then look at our blue here, so our amounts due from members and our amounts due to members, so CO2 and E90. Now, this section here, as we scroll down a little bit further, will populate areas within the members reconciliation note, or the reconciliation of members interest note, as we can see there, just titled. Now, both those map codes will populate the columns shown here, so loans and other debts due to members. So any amounts that members owe CO2 offset against any that's owed to them, which will be sitting within E90. Then we've got our members capital. Again, we can see here that's highlighted, that within this column. And then we move through to our G90, which is our members capital classified as equity. Then we've got our revaluation reserve, HO2, and we've got final, our other reserve, HO5. So the first prefix here, I mean, this guide, it gives us a good understanding of exactly where this map numbers, what column this map number is going to populate, to narrow it down. Now, the next stage really would be to get an idea how these rows are populated. So we know how the column is populated. So if we want anything within the blue row, we know it has to go to CO2 and E90. So what we're going to do within the webinar is also I'm going to show you how to see how this row is populated, because these rows would all be populated by the same mapping guide. Okay, so as we go through, what we use is mapping masks. So each row will have a similar map, or the same mapping masks, giving that consistency. So I'll show you how that works as we move through the webinar. As we go down within the guidance, you'll see things like profit allocation, the double entry that we're going to need to post. So effectively, really, we need to do two journals for a member's salary. So one which affects the member's reconciliation note and also affects the profit and loss, and then one which affects the balance sheet, which is our HO5 codes, and then another one which affects our members reconciliation note, which is our E90. So for one, so basically a salary of 50,000, you'll need to debit the P&L for 50,000, credit the members reconciliation note, and then debit our balance sheet, and then credit our reconciliation. So there's two journals there that we need to be aware of. So the guidance shows you how that works. Then it scrolls down and it shows you the full range of the mapping. So we can see here that we've got member 1, 2, 3, and up to 99. So it goes through here, shows you what the expected behavior of that account should be. So if we're posting due to LLP members balances brought forward, it's expecting a debit balance. Okay, as we go down to our E codes here, so our E90, well, that's expecting a credit balance. So it gives us the behavior that we should be posting as well. So try and guide us as we go through and setting those up. All right, so I'm just going to jump back now into my slides. So bear with me 1 second. All right, so hopefully you can see the slides now back on screen. Just before we get going, I just want to get a gauge of, do you think there's enough content on the knowledge base to help you with preparing LLP engagement files? There's lots of articles up there, there's loads of quick vids and webinars and so on, but if you think we could be adding more content, then that's something that we want to know about. So what we're going to do again is just raise a quick poll. Let us know if you think there's enough content on the knowledge base. If you answer the poll and say, actually, no, we'd like a little bit more content, what I'd like you to do, if possible, is just to go down to the comments field and just write a quick comment and say, okay, what you would find helpful. So maybe a little bit more of a step-by-step guide, some more videos on LLPs, examples, and so on, stuff like that. So I was going to hand you over to Tom to raise the poll. And just remember, if you do want some more content, just let us know what kind of content you want us to prepare and provide for you. Okay.
Thanks, Tony. So I'm just going to launch the poll for you. We love a poll today. Yeah, it's just pretty simple, yes or no. And the PDF that Tony was just working through, just so that you're aware, that's also available in the handouts section of the control panel. And as Tony said, if you can pop your responses or expand on your answer if it's no in if it's yes or no in the questions field, and there'll also be an opportunity for you to give us some feedback in the survey after the webinar. Just give you another sort of 10 seconds to pop your responses in there. Okay, so I'm going to close the poll now and just share the results. So we've got a few more of you saying that you don't need any more guidance. It'd be interesting to get your feedback after the answers that you gave, and it will help us to curate some more content for you in the future. Okay, I'll hand you back to Tony.
Brilliant. Thanks for that, Tom. And thanks again, guys, for taking part in the poll and providing us information. Okay, so the NLP mapping for you guys then, what you'd see there is from that article is that we get the opportunity to create members. Well, we start off with 3 members and we can go through and we can create additional members. We can create up to 99. Now, it all depends how you want to use Caseware a little bit. So we would always recommend that you go through and you create a map code per member, because that way you can take advantage of all the lead sheets that we prepare within the documents manager. Now, if you were to prepare your own lead sheets and you're not relying upon Casewares, then you could post all the movements to just one member because you don't need that split within Caseware because you don't want to rely upon our lead sheets and lead schedules. However, if you are using the Mercia packs and the hat packs and so on, then what we could really want to do is take advantage of the lead sheets and lead schedules that are automatically populated within the Caseware engagement file. Okay, if I was just to post to member 1, all the balances from every single member, then as you can imagine, the information within Caseware is not really going to be that useful when we're trying to get a breakdown of what's owed to what member of the group. Of the partnership. So again, things like due to members is a real key document. So to be able to go through and have that split in Caseware is going to be quite advantageous. Now with this, there's going to be more setup and preparation within the first year. But once that setup and the preparation is done, we've got the right split, then it's set up and it rolls forward to year 2, year 3. So you get the benefit of it then as well. Okay, so I mean, what we're going to do now is going to jump quickly into a Caseware file. So again, you should hopefully see that populating on your screen now. Within here, what I've got, just a Caseware file, we've got the accounts built. We're going to go to the members reconciliation note and a couple of areas within the accounts in a moment or so. For the time being, what I'm going to do is just run through a few areas within the documents manager. Just so you know, there's a LLP specific content. So this is where I was referring to those lead sheets. So here's the members capital one, the Llp members capital. So we can see that populating here. Again, this schedule is populated by map numbers and properties. So to make sure it's populating in the way we're seeing it, we need to make sure we allocate the correct map numbers. So from account here, go to assign mappings, what we'll see is if we go through, is here is all of our LLP mapping for our, say, our current assets. So CO2 20. So this is going to be our balances brought forward. as and when I go through and expand this, what we're going to see here is we've got due from members. So this is a generic kind of a capture all code. So when we see 00 on the end, it's the one where if we've got, say, 10 members and we don't want to take advantage of Caseware's lead schedules, we can just throw all the balances for due from LLP members brought forward through to CO2 20.00.00. Okay, if you want to be more specific and you want to go through to Mr. Tom Davis, then you could go through and see allocate it to C02 20.0001. Now, what Caseware doesn't do is it doesn't create every single map number for you. Okay, you can create up to 99, and you can see number 99 is there. But if you want to create number 5, what you want to do is right-click, go to new map number, and you can see there it creates the next available one on. So C02 20.0005. It's just for you guys to go through and set up the name. Now, when you're doing this, just to get consistency here, I'd always just go through to another map number and copy the description. Also, I always like to see if there's an extended description, so the 3 dotted button. Because it's a 3 dotted ellipsis button, it means there's nothing there. But if I was to put something there, we can see that that changes to a plus icon. That allows me to know there's an extended description on this account number. So for me, it's just a force habit doing this. So I'd go through, right-click, new map number, and go, okay, well, paste, and then just change that to 5. So again, this could be done within the first year setup, and you can set up as many of these as you like, up to 99. Okay, as when we roll forward the file, then the map numbers will roll forward with it. So again, it's a first year task just to get those set up within your engagement. Okay, now these properties here, I can go through and select a new map number. If you can't create new mapping numbers on there, what you want to go through and see your, say, your IT super Caseware super user or someone along those lines to see if you can be given the permissions to create new map numbers. Some firms would lock this down depending on the restrictions they've got in place. Okay, so if you do right click and you can't see new map number, it's just because the security that's been set up by your company doesn't allow you to add those in. If you do wish to add those in, then you'll have to speak, obviously, to the relevant person within your company. Okay, so that's a little bit of mapping. Now, for you guys as well, just remember, if you do want to take advantage of the lead sheets that are there and designed to be used, then we just need to make sure that we map that trial balance effectively. Okay, now just jump back into the slides quickly. We have one more poll for you today, really. That poll is really focusing on, oh, went a little bit too far. The poll's focusing on what do you guys find more difficult within engagement. Is it a case do you find the tailoring of the notes more challenging, or do you find the mapping more challenging? Again, it's just going to try and gear us up to say what content we're going to provide you in future, and what we're going to focus on a little bit more to make your life easier when you're preparing these LLPs. Because as you can see from that first poll, it's not something that you look like you prepare week in, week out. LLPs, it's going to be the biggest issue we have with LLPs is that we probably don't see it that regularly, so we don't become familiar with the mapping structure or editing notes. So we're going to raise just one more poll. Let us know what you find a little bit more tougher, whether it's the mapping or whether it's just the notes themselves. So I was going to hand you over to Tom again, just to raise that poll.
Okay, so I'll just pop that up on the screen now. So again, just two answers to choose from. If you have any specifics that you wanted to let us know about within mapping or within editing that you'd like some more guidance on, or if you'd like to expand on your answer, then please do so in the question field in the GoToWebinar control panel. We've got quite a few results coming in already, but I'll give you a bit more time to submit those. Okay, I think that gives us a good indication. So I'll just pop the results up on the screen. As you can see, well, it's good that we've got a bit of a mixture. So we've got content that covers both of those, but editing seems to be something that people would like more guidance on, or that they find more challenging. So interesting results. Thanks very much for the feedback.
Excellent. Again, thanks very much, guys. I know it's probably hard to listen to a webinar today on such a nice, beautiful, sunny day, but thanks again for the feedback. Now, I've got a file open that we're going to have a look at, and it's first of all, I'm going to just show you a few tricks of how to populate those notes. The reconciliation of members' interest note, this one down the bottom, is one we get quite a few queries on. Presentation is a thing there. I do believe that I think a lot of the queries or comments we get from support will be about formatting. It's a very difficult area to get everything everyone wants in the right place. As you could imagine, there's a lot of people that have got different styles or tastes when it comes to notes and how they should look, and how they should be presented. Now, within this notes, again, I think the key part really is understanding what presentation options are available in it. Really, they come from this table options first of all, so that will allow us to show, say, a prior year, a current year, prior year 2 figures, to have the prior year table. Now, when we add this in, this will just give us a section or add a section to the existing note. So we'll remove skip conditions in there, and then we'll just show us the prior year. So as we scroll down now, the note's going to be a little bit more detailed, and as you can see, okay, there's my brought forward, and there's my closing there. Now, the notes here, I think the main thing that we get would be, say, the presentation of the dashes, because a lot of people would say, okay, there's a dash there, so I should be able to populate it. Caseware decided to add the dashes in to get consistency throughout the note. So there was a dash on every row within every column, but not every row and every column or every cell will populate a balance. For example, say we look as we go down. So if we look at drawings, we know the drawings will not populate within, say, this column here, because this column here, if we scroll up, is our members capital, and we're not going to have drawings that affect the members capital in respect. So we get a lot of queries regarding this. So the first thing I really want to focus on with you is just to show you how it's populated, the tips or tricks just to see how to drive figures within a table in the correct area. Within tools, for the users that are aware of this, then sorry that you get to hear it again, but for the ones who aren't, you've got tech information. On the old toolbar, it used to be called tech support information, but now on the new toolbar, it's just tech info. If I was to select this icon, what it does is gives me a tech support information screen and tells me how that cell is calculated. Okay, so we can see here the cell calculation is blank. There is no calculation on this row. The dash there is simply for presentational purposes, and that is it. Caseware decided, as mentioned, to have dashes for consistency on every row within every column. Now, if I go across to the right side and I click on, say, the cell here, I can then go up to tech info to make sure I'm in the right column. So okay, so we want to go in this column here, not the total. Let's only go to this one, because obviously the total will just be the total of this here. So if I go to tech info, we can see here that this one here is adding up those two map codes. So I said within this column that it was always going to be populated by CO2 and E90. So we can see those map numbers populating. Now, some of you will be aware of wildcards and what wildcards are, because potentially maybe you've used them in Excel, but we use them in Caseware working papers as well within CaseView. And if I go along here, and so I have to get a little bit closer to the screen because my eyesight's not that great, we can see the asterisks just where my mouse is. So we've got CO2, 22, and asterisks. So what that's doing is looking at any variation of the map number that starts with CO2, 22, and it doesn't matter if whatever the next two sections are, it's going to take whatever the value of all those map numbers and add them together as just one value. Okay, so effectively then, just jumping back into my file, if I go back to my accounts and CO2 22, there we go. Basically what it's going to do is just add up any map number that's within here. So as I go through any of these map numbers, okay, so just add them up into one balance and populate that one balance within this cell here. So that's when we're looking at CO222, but you've also got E90.22, hence why I've got a balance in here, because when we just looked a moment ago, when we looked at the mapping screen, there was no balances in there for CO222. So they must all be coming from E9022. So we could just go back there and have a quick look, E9022, and we see E9022, there we go, some balances populating over here, 20101, which again, matches what we're seeing there within the note of 2010. Okay, so all the balances there for drawings are driven from the E90.22, but not just specifically one map number within there. It's looking at every single map number that lives within this folder. So it's looking at all of these here, whether it's for member 1 or member 2. Now, as we go through here, it's a really handy tool to know, okay, because you know where you want to populate. So if you've got, say, interest on capital, you know where you want to populate. Okay, so it's just how do we get that there? So you guys can go through, okay, I want to populate within this cell here. So how do I do that? I go to Tools, Tech Info. Okay, so that's the total. So what does that add up to? So go back to the other cell, Tech Info again. Okay, so this one's looking at E9024. So I know if I want to populate something in interest on capital, I need to map something to E9024. So just to show how that's driven, let's go back and just change one of the map numbers on the TV quickly, just to show you a drive through. So I'm going to put it in map number order, E90, and we said we want to change that to 24, didn't we, to drive it through. So it's going to change this one to 24. So now that's there, we can see that's populated in there. So E9024, just that one there. If I go back to the accounts now, what we should be seeing is a value drive from the cell above 210, and then we can see it now populating with interest on capital. So that's the first tip, really, to renegotiate this table and the disclosure is to first to know how to populate it. Now, from this document here that I showed you earlier on, we know exactly how to populate each column, which is brilliant. We know how to populate those columns, but we just need to know how to populate these rows as well. So within the note itself, we know now how to see exactly how each row is populated. Now, this row here, if we could populate across the row, okay, every single value across this row would be populated by that same mapping mask. Okay, so let me just explain that a little bit more and a little bit clearer. The mapping mask here that we're referring to is 24. Okay, so that row, let me just get my screen and split it a little bit. There we go. This row here, every single figure along this row, whether we can populate in this cell or not, if we could populate in this cell, then it would definitely go through and be populated by 24. Okay, everything along this same row would be populated by the same mapping mask of 24. Same way as if we change it to 23. So this drawings row here, this row here, I know we can't populate in every column because it wouldn't be appropriate, but if we could, every single row here, every single cell would be populated by a mapping mask of 23. Okay, so once I know this one's populated by 24, I know that every other one would also be populated by 24. So then I can go back to my mapping. I can say, okay, well, have we got a G90 24? So I could go to my Gs and go G90. Okay, I don't have a 24, but I do have a 22. So G90 22. So LLP members capital amounts repaid. Well, going back to that note then, we could find that within a table by again going to the clicking on cell, tech info, and if you found that 22, then we know the whole row would be populated by the same thing. Okay, all right, so just looking at the time there and seeing how it's quickly disappearing. Just before, again, we do run out of time, I just want to focus in on these options up here and a little bit more about the table. There's a section at the top here which really is for a memo purpose. It doesn't actually form part of the table itself. It's just there for memo. You'll see that again as we go through to the current year. So the information over here. Now, what I'd say for everyone within these notes to be fully aware of are the table options. So again, things like headers to be in lowercase to make sure they're consistent with the rest of the accounts. Areas like this is quite an important one. Check the box to hide subtotals. This one here would get rid of my problem with this. So I've got other amounts and a total. I don't really want a total for my other amounts of 750,000 because the total is the same as the other amounts. So we can go onto the table options there and just tick that box to hide the total, and then it'll just give me the other amounts, making it a little bit more tidier and easier on the eye. Okay. Other notes that you guys will have to work with as well will be loans and other debts due to members. The editing functionality on this note here can actually all be tackled using table. So if there's areas that we want to skip, you'll see that the functionality within the loans and other debts due to members all relates or is all activated by this table section. So if I click on the cell here, we can change the valuation. Now, the members reconciliation note here, if I clicked on the cell, you'd see that most of the buttons here go grayed out. Because of the complexity of the table and the size of it, a lot of the functions within table don't work specifically on the members reconciliation note. So it can make it a little bit more challenging. So what I'd like you guys to do is within the questions field, just let me know what areas that you find more difficult editing with the reconciliation note. Now, I'm not going to promise to go through and answer them straight away right now, but we will get back to you after the webinar and give you our best guided or best recommended practice to try and achieve those results. If not, we can always pass your comments over to the product management team for them to take them into consideration next time they're looking at revamping the reconciliation of members' interests note. Okay, so what I'm going to do now, because we are running out of time, is just pass you back over to Tom, just to run through any of the questions that you guys have received.
Okay, thanks, Tony. We're really right at the end of the webinar, but we'll throw in a very quick question, which is how do I populate the revaluation reserve column in the members' interest note? I think it's to do with the H02 codes, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It is down to the H02 codes. What we'll do is I'll give a clear indication of what exactly what that code is. We'll put it in the Q&A document after. But yeah, you're quite right there. It's going to be populated by those H codes. So we'll have that information. We'll put it into the Q&A document and make that available with the MP4 of this webinar on the knowledge base, if that's okay.
All right, thanks, Tony. Yes, so keep your questions coming in, and you can also add more feedback and more questions in the survey after the webinar. We'd very much appreciate it if you could fill that in, and we will add any comments and questions you have to the documentation afterwards. So as you can see here, we've got a very a pretty slide which is showing a wall of past webinars. You obviously don't have to watch them all at once. If you go to the knowledge base, you'll be able to see in the webinar section recordings of our past webinars. We're also in the process of adding some of those to YouTube as well. In terms of upcoming webinars, we do have a schedule online. So if you go to caseware.co.uk and go to the events page, you'll be able to see the agendas for the upcoming webinars and to register for them, which of course you're familiar with, having registered for this one. And you'll also be able to have a look at how long they are, and as I say, the agendas are on there as well. So that really brings us to the end of the broadcast today. Thank you for joining us, especially on such a nice day. We probably wanted to be in your garden. We'll get back to you directly with answers to your queries that you sent in. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you soon.
You guys have a lovely weekend.